Hi everyone, welcome to History on Trial. This is Dr. Tracey McCarthy, psychologist, attorney, and educator. We are going to be asking some questions versus simply providing information today, and hopefully others can contribute to this discussion. And this question is about what is your nationality? And this is specifically for those who identify as American Indian or Indigenous. There seems to be a miscommunication with respect to those terms, American Indian and also Indigenous. Those are classifications. Those are not, however, nationalities. And so the question is, what is the nationality? Where do you belong in terms of a clan membership, in terms of that family name, that tribal affiliation? What is that? The reason this is important is it's important for a number of reasons. But one reason is that a number of entities on both the west coast of Africa and often on the east coast of the Americas and also in the Caribbean and then down in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, you have a number of individual groups that have names that are consistent with another place. And so that is the case with the Doag people, who are also known as the American Indians. And this is important because there's a question about where did this name come from? And how did these other people all over the place get these names that seem to have these biblical roots, although the individual groups are often denying these biblical roots? And so we're going to look at some reasons why this question has come up, and also just encourage people to start thinking a little bit more deeply about not only their names, but the heritage and how they got these names and why on earth they have Hebrew names if they do not themselves identify as Hebrew or their ancestors did not identify as Hebrew. And here we're just going to look very quickly at some information from the National Park Service, and this is from Prince William Forest Park, Virginia information. This involves an explanation of the background of the Doag people. And so you can see it says at the start of the 17th century, the Doag people were residing in what is today known as Prince William Forest Park. And this particular group was also related to Powhatan. And when you go down further, you see it says civilization on the coastal plain. And then there's a further discussion related to Virginia and indicating that the Doag people lived in the coastal region of what is today known as Hampton Roads. And so this is related to the Potomac River. We've touched on this before, but what's odd about this whole thing is that this name Doag, which is the name for this tribe or this ethnic group, is a biblical name. It's a very unusual spelling, so the likelihood that these are two distinct people is probably slim. And so you see here at 1673 in Strong's Concordance, and this is in the Hebrew, you see that Doag is identified as an Edomite. And you can see the phonetic spelling down below, and you can also see further information related to the translation. And just in case you see other variations of this name, you can see that there are some other spellings with the Dowoeg, and then you see other forms and transliterations down below. And you can also see another notation related to a derivative, which is Daag. Now, we've touched on this before related to Doag, and so we're revisiting that because you can see here, not only is Doag the name of an Indian group in the Americas, you also have this Doag name being a biblical name, a Hebrew name, specifically Edomites, and then you have this Doag surname, and here you see the history and family information related to Doag, and this name came out of Scotland and Ireland. And you can see that there is also a rooting in the Picts clans. And so this is very important because the Picts are known as the painted Picts, also sometimes referred to by some historians as the painted Maori. And so we can get into that in another discussion. And so you can see here there's another indication related to Doag again. And you also see additional information down below related to the origins of this particular group. Now what's interesting is that they are related to this area known as Perth. And then you also have Perth in Australia. And so wherever there was this migration out of Europe, there was the transplanting of the name in these other parts of the world. And so it's sort of difficult to determine which came first, the chicken or the egg, because someone could just as easily say that the name came from the other place and then it was transplanted into Europe. In this discussion related to the spelling variations, you can see all of these variations of this particular surname, Doag. And so you can see even including D-O-G, which is related to Caleb, by the way, the name Caleb. And then you also see some additional spellings with the D-O-A-G and D-O-A-K and D-O-A-C-K. And there are other spellings also. Now, this is considered an American Indian group. What's interesting is when you look at the global distribution of this particular surname, what you find is, yes, you have the highest distribution in the United States at 107. But then you see another indication where this surname is representing at least 41 individuals in England. And then you see the distribution that looks like those deportation itineraries. So you see the name in New Zealand, and you see the name in Australia, and you see the name in South Africa. We're going to wrap this up with an overarching question of who are your people? And this is a question for those of you who are identifying as American Indian, those of you who are identifying as West African in particular, and also those individuals who find that they have roots that involved deportations for their ancestors, going to South Africa or going to Australia or New Zealand. What are your roots? What is your nationality in terms of what's your ethnic group? You know, who are your people? And when you answer the question of who are your people, are you taking the time to dig a little deeper so that you can understand in a more holistic fashion who your people are and how they came to be wherever they are? When you have a name like Doag, to just insist that this is an American Indian name without understanding or admitting or recognizing that this name is shared by a number of other people that do not necessarily identify as American Indian. And specifically, you're talking about those individuals who historically would have been classified as Hebrews, and specifically Edom. There seems to be a trend, a global trend, if you will, of those who their ancestry traces to this word Edom or Esau. There seems to be an attempt to obscure that identity. And so the question is why? What is that all about? Why would one hold on to the name of an ancestor that would trace back to Edom or Esau, but then at the same time pretend not to be that? And so that's food for thought and questions for individuals to start answering for themselves as you are doing your research on your ancestry. That's a question that you should be asking. You know, who are the ancestors and what are the true and complete roots of these ancestors? And why are some of these groups pretending to be something that they are not, and then pretending to not be what they apparently are? Remember, knowledge is power. Take care. See you soon.